Hello and welcome to Sunrise Cardcast, your one-stop podcast shop for all things hockey cards. My name is Eric Andrews, also known in the hobby as Hammerhawks, and I am not joined by my co-host Aaron Goldstein. He's actually currently roaming around Sweden, so I'm just going at it solo as far as the hosting duties, but joining me for the episode is a good friend of the show, someone that many of you guys are probably already familiar with. He's been on the show a couple of times and obviously has a really good show of his own, that being Jeremy Lee from Sports Cards Live and Hobby Insider. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Doing good, Eric. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be back.
Pleasure to have you on as always. So the first topic I wanted to talk on, we typically like discussing new products when they come out, whether that be a more in-depth review or just kind of highlighting some things about the product. This one is going to be an extremely brief segment just because there's not really a whole lot to say about it other than maybe the significance behind it and what that means for the hobby, that being the new Tim Hortons Team Canada release, which to the best of my knowledge has not been done before. Obviously they've had just the normal Tim Hortons release, for a number of years at this point, but the Team Canada version is a new release for Tim Hortons. So kind of interesting to see that. It does seem to kind of have a similar feel as the normal Tim Hortons release, with a base set, some parallels and inserts and stuff like that. Pretty basic, but yeah, still a cool set nonetheless. But one thing that I really wanted to get Jeremy's insight on about this product specifically, and Aaron and I have talked about this, but I like hearing about it from other people too, is why products like this, the lower end stuff that's very accessible for everybody, at least in Canada anyway, not for me down here in the States, but why, cheap and accessible products like this are important for the hobby. So Jeremy, if you just want to take that question and kind of run with it and apply it to Tim Hortons Team Canada.
Yeah, no, thanks, Eric. I agree. It's an important set for the hobby overall as a lower entry point because it does provide the ability for younger people or lower income people to collect what is a beautiful set year after year, chase what are some rare inserts, and then they often put in redemptions for autographs or even memorabilia like jersey cards that tend to have a good collector base. So there is the chance to find some Easter eggy type of pieces within that product. And I like, this is the second set that Upper Deck has collaborated with Tim Hortons on this year. They had the regular set earlier in late 2021, and now they've released this Team Canada set. So it's kind of neat that they're doing two sets in the 1 year. I think it must have something to do with the World Juniors were being played until they were kind of canceled all of a sudden due to the pandemic. But perhaps that was a bit of a promotional tie-in that Tim Hortons and Upper Deck were thinking about. And you mentioned that, they hadn't done a Team Canada set before with Tim Hortons, but Upper Deck had done a Team Canada set before on a separate collaboration with Canadian Tire. You might remember that, Eric, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I collected it. There were some amazing inserts and there's some beautiful acetate cards. And so, it's not the first time and it's a very popular bit of content as far as Team Canada goes. So I think it's awesome. And it really just comes back to, I think it's a real sort of grassroots mechanism to reach a wider audience and grow the hobby organically that way. I think I'm a bit older than you are, but I remember in the early 90s when Upper Deck first did cards with McDonald's. And I'll tell you, I was in McDonald's a lot, grabbing those cards, building those sets as a younger guy. So I'm sure that there are lots of people that collect. Now, I know just from going to card shows and being in the hobby, there's tons of people that collect these, from kids to the oldest members of our hobby. So it has wide appeal. And the fact that it's got that bit of Canadiana attached to it being the Tim Hortons brand it's just really cool. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you mentioned the Canadian Tire release because I had thought about that. It in a way kind of takes the place of that almost, but I like and I don't know if this was Upper Deck's idea or Tim Hortons idea, but for this product, everyone in the set is actually pictured representing Canada. Whereas in the Canadian Tire release, that wasn't always the case. So yeah, I think that was just a nice little twist to the product. And I think that obviously, kind of like you were saying, helps appeal to even more people up there too. You might open a pack of normal Tim Hortons, say you're a Leafs fan, pull a Canadians card. Well, you're not really interested in that card that much. But if everyone's wearing a Team Canada jersey, it's a Canadian. You're gonna root for that player. So yeah, it's cool to see. And like you said, a second product coming out from Tim Hortons this year is really cool too. So just wanted to touch on that briefly. And then turning to the main part of the episode, obviously, I'm sure you guys have probably heard the news by now, but if you haven't, Fanatics bought out Topps earlier this week. It was announced on January 3rd that Fanatics purchased Topps for roughly $500 million. And while that does not necessarily immediately affect the hockey card hobby as it stands today, it's still a really notable topic just in terms of sports cards in general. And there could be some implications for hockey cards down the road as well. So I just figured that talking about that was really important, and having someone like Jeremy on to talk about that too, with his background collecting a number of sports, not just hockey, would be a good guest to have on to talk about it. So, first of all, Jeremy, I mean, this is probably one of, if not the largest transaction in the sports collectibles industry ever. I was doing some research and I couldn't find anything bigger, but purely looking at that dollar amount, $500 million, what is your reaction just to the sheer magnitude of the sale?
Well, as far as the price that Fanatics has, supposedly paid, I don't know if that's official. I had heard 1.6 billion at one point. Then I heard north of 500 million. So I don't know what the price was. To me, the price is whatever it is, it's an impressive amount of money. But you mentioned the research you did, or the largest transaction in the sports card business. Well, when Collectors Universe was just acquired for over 800 million, so that might in fact be bigger. But
Okay.
to me, that's not the important sort of metric on this transaction. What's important is that Fanatics has acquired Topps. Now, I remember when, and we all remember at this point, when in August it was announced. It was announced, but really what happened was Fanatics dropped a bomb on our hobby when it was announced that they had acquired the future exclusive rights to MLB, NBA, and NFL, and their PAs. And that to me was the biggest news that I'd ever heard in the hobby in my 40 years in the hobby. So since then, there's been a ton of speculation by you, Eric, and by every content creator, tons of speculation about what does this mean to the hobby, and more importantly, what is Fanatics going to do? How is Fanatics going to go from not being a card company to being a card company? Do they have the expertise? Do they have the human resources to do it? What are they going to do? How are they going to all of a sudden become a card company? And so there was a ton of speculation. Well, they're going to buy an existing company. They're going to buy Topps, Panini, or Upper Deck, or maybe two of them or all three of them. And some people were saying they're not going to buy any of the companies. They're going to do it themselves. Some people were saying they're going to buy Panini. Some people were saying they're going to buy Topps. People were saying they're going to buy Upper Deck. But it's always funny, isn't it? How once you find out what ends up happening, once it actually happens, you're like, well, that makes the most sense, doesn't it? So I've been thinking to myself all week, if I'm the people heading up Fanatics Sports Cards company, what company would I want to buy? And if you go through them, you think, okay, do I want Upper Deck? Well, Upper Deck does make the nicest cards in the space. I think they make the best cards out there, but they only have hockey and then, as far as the big four sports go. So maybe not the best move. And then you think, well, do they want to buy Panini? Well, Panini's got, they've got basketball and football. That's huge. They make some baseball cards, so that's great. So let's consider Panini, but let's consider Topps. Well, Topps is baseball cards. Topps is baseball. Topps is Americana. So if you want to, Panini has only been in the sports card game in the card game in North America since like 2009 or something like that. They're relatively new. They've been in the sticker business for decades. So that's a different story. So I thought, you think to yourself, well, yeah, how could we not have seen this coming? How could we not have gone live or documented our prediction that if they're going to buy companies, it's going to be Topps, because that's what makes sense, because Topps has the brand equity, they've got the longevity, they've got the history, they've got the cool designs that everybody wants to relive. So it makes so much sense to me, and it really gives me faith in what Fanatics is doing, to know that they're not messing around. They went after the best brand in sports cards, the most valuable IP. And Panini, to me, they make some great cards, but it's not even close to Topps in terms of the brand and the nostalgia. So great move. Kudos to the kudos to Michael Rubin, Josh Luber, and the rest of their team who got this deal done without real. I know some people must have had a bit of a knowledge that this was going to happen. I had no clue. So, and on what was a statutory holiday up here in Canada, we get this news on the 3rd, and it blew me away for about 10 seconds. And I was like, okay, good. It was like a sigh of relief. All right, they're on the right track. That infrastructure that they had none of, they now have all the infrastructure they need. And now they can just make it better going forward. So very excited for what the future holds for Fanatics-Topps and the hobby.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you just said it right there. Like, I think there was always that question when when it was announced that they did get those licenses for the MLB, NBA, and NFL, okay, how are they going to do this? And now, like you said, having acquired Topps, it all makes sense. There's no question of how they're going to do things and, what it's going to look like and stuff. Now they have an established foundation to go off of. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Maybe just expound a little bit on that, how the acquisition of Topps kind of impacts your view of Fanatics and, maybe what you think that they'll do, in terms of continuing on the Topps brand.
Well, the first thing that it tells me is that they know what they don't know. They know what they don't know. That's really important, right? You hear the best leaders in the world telling you that all they do is surround themselves with people who are smarter than them. And I'm not saying that anyone at Topps is smarter than Rubin or Luber. I'm just saying that Rubin and Luber, and I don't know who's making these decisions, so I'm assuming it's these two. They seem to be the face of Fanatics trading cards at this point. So these guys recognized that, hey, we've got these licenses. Now we have to make cards, and we probably don't want to wait till 2025. So the fact that they knew that they had to go purchase an existing enterprise and that they made the right choice, in my opinion, it tells me that they're making good decisions from early on. So I'm bullish on what they're going to do down the road. There's a lot of excitement now that various brands are going to come back to basketball and to football and continuing on in baseball. So that's great too. I mean, Panini with their basketball license, we all know that when Prism first came out, it was a dog. Nobody cared. Now, 7-8 years later, everybody cares, which is great for that brand. And that brand has equity now that I don't think can ever be taken away from it. I think, 10 years from now, people are going to look back fondly on the Panini era, and they're going to chase a lot of cards that they remembered collecting back in the 2010s. So that's cool. But nonetheless, Topps Chrome, Topps Archives, there's, refractors, there's all sorts of brands that Topps makes that they're going to be able to, and technologies that they're going to be able to, like card style, that they're going to be able to apply now to baseball plus basketball plus football. So, I mean, if I'm collectors of those sports, and I am somewhat, not necessarily not, ultra modern stuff, but I do collect the odd card, even modern. I'm very excited because you're now back, now you can put I don't know, whoever the rookie is 3 years from now, you can put that player's Topps Chrome card beside the Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome and the LeBron James Topps Chrome. And that's just kind of cool. I just think as collectors, we like those sorts of things. And the Topps Chrome, the Topps like paper and the Topps Chrome brands, they are iconic. They are. So it's a great thing. Where I have a bit of concern, and this isn't concern like legitimate concern, it's just that more ignorance on my part, because I don't collect a ton of baseball. So I don't even know what Topps high-end brands are. So I don't know what the high end of basketball and football is going to look like down the road. I don't think if Panini stays separate, it's not going to be National Treasures or Immaculate or Flawless, which are all amazing products. So what's Topps going to do to satisfy the hunger of the highest end collectors and investors in the hobby? That's my question that's still out there.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting for sure. And I like how you mentioned the Topps Chrome bit too. I mean, even growing up, I started collecting like 2003-ish, and I remember opening packs of 0203 Topps hockey. And I think they had like an update product or something, and you could pull Chrome parallels and that. And I remember pulling a Chrome refractor of some absolute no-name junk rookie, but it was still a really beautiful card. So yeah, I think that'll be huge, like you said, being able to tie the history of those cards to, the future is certainly going to be something really exciting too. And to have that across the sports too, definitely is going to be really cool. This, is kind of a question that maybe the answer has changed, in light of this news, but, maybe go back to when you first heard about the news about the licenses back, late summer. Hearing that news, did you initially think that having Fanatics get those 3 licenses would be a good thing or a bad thing for those industries?
That's a good question. I was so shocked. It was a bomb on the hobby. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know, but I'm a glass half full kind of person. So I was bullish on it, and I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot of money at stake, so they can't make too many mistakes along the way. And now that 5-6 months have passed, we are seeing that what might be the most important decision they ever make, they just made, executed, and closed the deal. So good for them. But I want to ask you, Eric, when last Monday came and went, January 3rd, 2022, and you heard the news, you asked me, I want to ask you the same question. You heard the news. What was your initial reaction to hearing that Fanatics bought Topps?
To me, it just made sense. Everything about it made sense. Like you were saying too, before that, there was that question of how are they going to do this? Are they going to try to buy someone out? Are they going to just try to do their own thing? And, for me, I wasn't sure either way which way they were going to go. But, I think it would have been a lot more difficult for them to establish themselves within the collecting base if they just went at it on their own and tried to forge a new path. So, I think acquiring at least one of the big 3 manufacturers was, almost kind of a necessity if they, were really going to take this thing as seriously as they should have been. So the fact that they did go and get Topps, yeah, like you said, it's still kind of a little bit shocking, but it makes so much sense. And I think, it's something they did have to do. So yeah, I mean, I think them getting that deal done definitely gives me more confidence in what they're going to do in the future. Just kind of having that foundation to work with and to build off of, but I think something that's so important, and you talked about this with the Topps Chrome and the other brands, is having that familiarity, I think is going to be crucial for, building themselves up over these next few years. Having those products that I'm sure, yes, they're going to be a little bit different, but having just even the same name of product that's still coming out for baseball, people are going to
Yeah.
resonate with that. People are going to say, yeah, maybe it's a little bit different. They're changing a few things, but it's still Topps archives. I still can, understand what the product is about. I don't have to learn a lot, about this company or the product or anything. It's still familiar. So, I think that is a crucial element to this. And like you said, a company like Topps that just has decades of background within the hobby, obviously in baseball, but even with other sports too, that's a critical component to this. So yeah, I mean, hearing that news, it definitely made me excited and kind of reassured me that they are going to do a good job with this and that they want to do a good job with this.
Yeah.
I think there was probably a little bit of question and concern, at least with some collectors, about are they going to try to just be extremely innovative and kind of change what collecting looks like. And I think in some ways they're going to try to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, I think taking this step of getting Topps and kind of acknowledging, like you said earlier, this is how things have been done and there's value in that, I think is really important and really exciting too, for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. And I'm pretty certain that, for the next few months, maybe even, 18, 24 months, it will pretty much be sort of business as usual at Topps, but it's not going to last for very long. When an acquisition like this happens, changes happen, no matter what you think, it's going to happen. I've been in the middle of M&A in the past. Like the company I work for, we were just acquired. And, at first you're hoping and you're told that, oh, it's not going to change. You'll be able to operate, you're just being acquired. Everything changes. It does. And so I don't want to say everything's going to change at Topps, but it's not going to be the same thing. It's going to be different. Now, the cards might not be completely different. There will be similarities. They will stick with some of the formulas that have worked over the past many decades. But Topps hasn't always been, they haven't always put out the best products. They've had some hurdles, they've had challenges, they've had some missteps along the way. So I think that when you bring in this new vision, this new leadership, and you combine that with the history and the brand that is Topps, I think it's great. I think Topps can only get better, and it will get better. I'm super confident in that. So, but it might be business as usual for a little bit of time, but it's not going to remain business as usual. As much as the message going out to the hobby might be that, oh no, Topps is Topps still. Yeah, but it's going to be the new Topps 2.0 sort of thing, right? So it's going to be really exciting. And as content creators, when the Fanatics announcement came out that they acquired all these licenses, that provided the content creators in the hobby content for months and months and months, years and years even. And now we have this additional layer on top of the licenses upon which we can speculate and prognosticate and just kind of have fun talking about amongst ourselves and with the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously we enjoy talking about sports cards regardless of what the sport is, but obviously this is a hockey card podcast. So I want to talk a little bit about what some future implications for hockey cards specifically might be. So in your opinion, what does this acquisition of Topps mean for hockey cards? Obviously I understand Topps doesn't make hockey cards right now, but what could that mean for hockey cards in the future? And we touched on it earlier, but do you think there's any chance that Fanatics could potentially look into buying Upper Deck as well?
I mean, look into it, of course. That potential is there. Now, I don't know all the discussions you've had. I had the president of Upper Deck, Jason Moshera, on the show on Sports Cards Live, I don't know, about 6 or 8 weeks ago. And I asked him directly, is Upper Deck for sale? And could it be sold? The answer, he said, is no. Upper Deck is not for sale. Upper Deck will not be sold. So that's one answer. And that's the answer of the president of the company. He's not, as far as I know, he's not the shareholder, or he might have some equity, but it's a family-owned company. Richard McWilliams' estate family owns the company. So if their position is the company is not for sale, then it isn't. But if you own that company, if you're the Richard McWilliams estate, and you feel that this asset being Upper Deck you own is worth $500 million, and then Fanatics comes along and offers you $1.5 billion, how do you say no to $1 billion more than you thought? So money talks, right? Money is a very powerful thing in our world. So, but it really depends. If you're Fanatics, do you really need to go spend maybe the same or more than you spent on Topps to acquire the hockey licenses that Upper Deck just extended for what seems like at least 10 years? I don't know. I mean, hockey is really a drop in the bucket overall, which I hate to admit because it's my favorite sport to collect. But you look at the stats, and I mean, hockey's fallen behind soccer in terms of PSA submissions and eBay listings and all these things. So, I mean, I don't know that hockey, it's on their radar, but how bright is that dot on the radar? I don't think it's very bright. I think they'd love to have it, maybe more so for Marvel than for hockey. I don't know. But your question was, what are the implications for hockey cards? Upper Deck can continue to operate and put out the beautiful products that they always do without having to really worry about anything. Now, were they worried about Panini and Topps over the past 10 years? Not really. Are they going to be worried? Well, I mean, Panini had a hockey license until 2014-15, so maybe they are. Are they worried about Fanatics now? I don't think so. I mean, if anything, Fanatics is just going to bring more eyeballs and attention to the hobby. Upper Deck is going to benefit from that just because they're in the same industry, and Fanatics can't make hockey cards. So, yeah, they can make some hockey stickers, but they can't make hockey cards. So that's a pretty great position for Upper Deck to be in, to be able to just ride the wave that Fanatics is going to blow upon the shore. That's a brand new metaphor I just came up with.
There you go. You have to use it on your show sometime.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you were saying, your conversation with Jason, we had Chris Carlin on our show around that same time, and he had very similar things to say as well. And obviously Jason is a little bit more qualified to speak to that exact question, but it seems like that topic had been discussed within their management and leadership, and Chris was on board with that as well and was in agreement with that too. So yeah, I mean, I think, and this question's been thrown out on social media a lot this week too. I saw a thread on Facebook today about it. Oh, how long until Upper Deck is bought out? And like you said, I don't see it happening. And like you said too, I think it does give them even more stability within the hockey card hobby, because I think, at least, one thing that I was thinking about prior to the Fanatics news in August, when Upper Deck's license for hockey did run out, I don't know if we know the exact year when it was supposed to run out, but probably in the next few years, would Panini try to get back in? Would Topps try to come back in after all these years? And I think there might have been some question there. I think Upper Deck was probably still in a good spot, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I think this does give them more stability now, and like,
sorry, I think it gives, sorry, Eric, but it gives the whole industry more stability, not just Upper Deck. Upper Deck just benefits from all the publicity that Fanatics is going to bring to the overall hobby, because sports fans are sports fans. You might catch on to Fanatics and Topps and deciding to buy some basketball cards, but guess what? I'm not only a New York Knicks fan, I'm also a New York Rangers fan. Where them hockey cards at? Sorry, guys, we're Fanatics. We can't do hockey cards. Well, where am I going to get my hockey cards? Well, you're going to find out pretty quick that you're going to go to Upper Deck to get your licensed hockey cards. So that's, it's more than stability. The stability, I think, is there. The stability comes from the passionate collectors. I've had this conversation many times on my show recently that baseball and hockey, I believe, have the best foundational collectors in the hobby, the most loyal, the most dedicated. They're not going anywhere. So, if the poop were to hit the fan, hockey and baseball are going to survive. I think basketball and football do too, but I think you've got more transient participants in those sports than you do in hockey and baseball. So the foundation is there. It's now this extra attention that Fanatics is. It's just a default. It's just an effect that it's going to have on Upper Deck and hockey cards, that it's going to bring more attention. Fanatics cannot say, hey, let's grow the hobby, but only baseball, football, basketball. They don't have that control. They don't have the control. They can't control where people's eyes are going to go. So people are going to collect the cards that they put out, and it's going to grow the whole pie for every participant. It's going to help Leaf. It's going to help Upper Deck. It's going to help Ultra Pro. It's going to help PSA. It's going to help Beckett. It's going to help the whole. It's going to help you, Eric. It's going to help Sports Cards Live, Center Ice Cardcast. It's going to help everything. But Upper Deck might be the biggest beneficiary of it all, that, who, in terms of entities that are not working directly with Fanatics.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, one thing I just thought of too, I feel like Fanatics, as a company as a whole, not just trading cards, but Fanatics does a pretty good job of marketing themselves and advertising, whereas I think, you didn't see commercials for Topps and Panini and, Upper Deck. Whereas, you turn on a hockey game and you're going to see a commercial for Fanatics, apparel and stuff like that. So obviously for hockey, they're not going to be making commercials for hockey cards, but, they're still going to be out there in front of people's eyes. And obviously in other sports, now they can market and advertise trading cards too. So, and that'll just feed right back into what you were saying, bringing eyes onto the hobby as a whole. So I think that's an interesting component too. One thing that you had briefly mentioned is the Topps sticker set. How do you think that the purchase of Topps by Fanatics will affect that annual sticker set moving forward?
I don't think it will affect that at all. I think that is a very minor part of the overall Topps portfolio of annual releases. I'm glad they do it. I think some of them are really cool even. I don't think it's going to affect it or change it. I think it's like, okay, you just keep on doing that. Keep on doing that. It's probably maybe that pays the rent or something like that. Keep on doing it. And I don't see this having any impact on it, aside from maybe some sort of innovation. I don't know what innovation could really come in related to stickers and sticker albums and that sort of thing. But I mean, as a pretty mature collector myself, I haven't collected stickers since like 1985, and I don't really plan to go back and fill out an album. That said, there's some pretty cool stickers over the year. I wouldn't mind having Connor McDavid's first top sticker, and Sidney Crosby's and Ovi's and all these guys. I wouldn't mind having those in my collection, but I'm not about to go buy packs searching for it. Maybe a couple here and there for a few bucks, but I'm not about to go complete the whole set. I'm just speaking for myself. I guess the impact the impact. Let me, you know what? I want to sort of start this answer over again by saying, if Fanatics is going to promote their Topps sticker set, hockey sticker set, well, then that's just going to be really good for the hockey segment of the hobby, because all of a sudden people are going to see, well, I can go into any Fanatics retail outlet. I can buy football cards, basketball card, baseball cards, and hockey stickers. Well, I want me some hockey cards. Well, that's where you're gonna have to go find them from Upper Deck. So, I don't think it's gonna hurt Topps or Fanatics, but it could have a very positive effect on more. So it's like the promotion and Fanatics being involved now in the top stickers could help hockey cards, Upper Deck hockey cards and Leaf hockey cards and so forth. So it's going to be interesting to watch over the years. Like, I'm glad that I'm young enough still to be able to observe the next 20 years of the hobby and see where it's going to go, because what's the next biggest news that's going to come out? Like, this is huge. I don't know what bigger news there could possibly be in the hobby. Maybe I'm just not thinking, wide enough, but I don't know what's bigger than what we've seen.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there anything, what could be bigger? What, like, someone buys Beckett? Who cares? We've already seen Collectors Universe get acquired. Someone could acquire Panini or Upper Deck. Who cares? We just saw Topps get acquired, the biggest brand in the space. What's going to happen? Someone acquire, maybe Upper Deck acquires a center ice card cast. Like, that's really cool for you guys, but like, that's not nearly as big as what's going on, what we've seen. So yeah, it's just, we've got the next 20 years, the next 5, 10, 15, 20, it's going to be fun to watch and be in the hobby.
Yeah. And I mean, you pair that too with what this hobby has, been through over the last 2 years, and the huge expansion of the hobby, I would say, over the last couple of years, take all of those new collectors and reinvigorated collectors and just pump that straight into this. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see for sure. So yeah, I think that's a good point too. I feel like that's pretty much all of the questions and topics that I had. Is there anything else about, Fanatics as a whole, or the Fanatics-Topps news that you would want to discuss?
No, I'm just, I guess to wrap it up, I'm just really excited by it. I think they made the right move. I think they bought the right company. Looking back now, it's a no-brainer. How could we not have predicted this? And I know many people did, so kudos to them. No, just excited for it, excited to see what comes. And Josh Luber is a collector. He's the chief visionary officer, so that gives me comfort. Similar to the way Nat Turner is a collector, acquired PSA and PSA's sister company. So I feel like the hobby is in great hands, and it's in younger hands, which is good. It's in the hands of people who are collectors and investors in these companies. So yeah, I'm just really happy with what's transpired and hoping for the best. I hope there's a chance things could go sideways. I hope for the best that they won't, and I'm going to continue with that attitude. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I appreciate your insight as always, and appreciate your time as always as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me and talking about, like you said, potentially the biggest news that this hobby has ever seen.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me back, Eric. Appreciate it. It's miss having Aaron on with us today, but I know he's having a great trip out in Europe. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it, and to keep doing what you guys are doing. You're doing a great job.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I think that will do it for this episode. As always, please be sure to follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Center Ice Cardcast, and on Twitter at Center Ice CC. Please also be sure to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss a future episode. Until next time on Center Ice Cardcast, keep collecting those hockey cards.